And eKop, let's look at the opening hands.
Funny enough, I don't think the opening hands are as important in this matchup as they are in a lot of others, as both players are playing decks that favor the endgame.
Ooh, 2 fire elementals immediately on the first hand. Yeah, don't want that, but we do see a Stormforge Axe for eKop, and Monk gets a pretty decent starting hand. Novice Engineer is always really nice.
Both the players have extreme creature control in their opening hand, but no actual creatures.
Yeah.
So we're going to see a lot of nothingness for a lot of the first few turns here, I believe.
Yeah, so with that, we can see Monk will probably drop a coin Novice as a first turn. Or wait, is he really going to end his turn?
Yeah, you know, you're playing endgame. When you run into a Shaman, the reason you play a Shaman right now is because, you know, the big creatures are efficient.
Yeah.
And when they pop up a big creature, you need a response immediately. And the coin will often you know, give you that advantage again.
Well, just like you were mentioning, Crip, pretty passive. We see a Searing Totem.
That thing's going to die.
Yeah, very quickly. Eventually, but we have, for now, Monk's just going to drop the Novice Engineer and just build up his hand. And taking a look at the 2 decks, seems like they will have a lot of late game power matching up, especially considering after about the 5 drops, it starts getting pretty heavy hitting.
Yeah, but you really kind of have to hit like critical mass because, I mean, the Druid has okay single target removal, especially with Monk having the Wraths in the deck. He can probably, you know, edge out a little bit. He's actually thinking probably about hitting Wrath for 1 because he realizes against the Shaman, most of the stuff's going to be late game, and he just needs to draw bigger creatures or things like Swipe to deal with them.
Yep, and filling his hand with more useful things later on is pretty good. As the Wrath will hit, and Monk will end his turn, drawing a Sun Fury Protector. Now, I did see Monk experimenting with Ancient Watcher and Druid, and looking at the deck was, oh yeah, he's putting it in there as well.
Yep.
What do you think about that dynamic?
Ancient Watcher is really good. When you run the double Argus, the double Sun Fury Protector as he is, you're going to see the Ancient Watcher, you know, just sit on the board. If the opponent's playing aggro, he's going to completely ignore it. But then when you give it Taunt, he's going to have suddenly a pretty big problem. So it's kind of like a ramp up defense that goes unnoticed, which is really good. And there's really no other card like it. It's pretty good and useful. Pretty good in Druid because often when you have Swipe or you have a couple other cards, you don't mind if they fill their board with junk creatures.
Ooh, Monk's gonna use his second Wrath, or he's thinking about it, on the Harvest Golem and forcing him to use his Death Rattle, and then potentially coining and assassinating it immediately.
Yep. He may be overreacting here. As I mentioned, the coin is a pretty big part. He may be doing the play just because he drew into Innervate. So,
he has that insurance.
Yeah, there's a little bit of insurance there. The problem with the Druid is if the opponent drops like an Earth Elemental on 5, you're really not going to have an answer on 5. Fortunately for Monk, that's not the case, not yet. We've yet to see what cards are going to come up. But you can see all these control cards in the Shaman's hand are absolutely worthless. Like Stormforge Axing is as bad as the Druid hero ability. It's you know, a -2 for the opponent, where with the Druid it's a +1 for you, -1 for the opponent. So you're really doing nothing.
Doing it early sometimes can cost you some really important early mid-game drops as well. Especially if you, like, for example, you do it now, you can't drop the Sylvana, so eKop's really...
On the flip side, all these cards are extremely effective if the opponent is running, you know, a bunch of small creatures.
It's interesting because we do give the players the option to debate, and you were part of that discussion. eKop is going to go for the face for 2 damage, by the way. What was the rationale behind picking the Druid? Was it anticipation of the Mage?
Well, we discussed it, and we have some kind of strategy related to that. Based around that some decks are almost certain hard counters to other decks, and you know, he felt, along with the rest of our team, felt that the Druid isn't, you know, particularly good against anything. So as a result, he should just throw it out there,
and
see what happens.
Feel it out.
Yeah. So while he is the underdog here, as far as the set of games is going to go, you know, that's going to be a different story.
Well, now we have eKop has a few options under his belt. Going to take out the Novice Engineer, can drop this Sun Cleric and the
I don't know if he will
Squire.
here. He might value his Lightning Totem, but the Argent Squire is quite useful when you pump it up. And that's probably what he's thinking right now. So he does decide to go for the Totem. And then the Argent Squire. That's pretty interesting, actually.
Yeah. I mean, the spell power totem is extremely useful, but he doesn't need it in any near-time future.
I mean, the only creatures that we've seen from the Druid are Novice Engineers up to this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess he can completely deduce. Well, he's afraid of what's going to happen next, but still no real answers. He could innervate and drop one of the Ancients, Ancients of War, Ancients of Lore. What would you do in this scenario?
Well, the Druid is very complex. It looks like he may gamble an innervate play. The problem with that is he hasn't tested his opponent for Hex. Now, I don't believe Hex is in the Shaman's hand, but without knowing, this is more or less of a desperate move. And if eKop is really paying close attention to the nuances going on, he may realize that his opponent doesn't have much and may start to go all in.
Right. So then what would you do? Would you drop the Keeper of the Grove, try to fight back for some more board control, maybe wipe something off?
I don't know. I believe that he's considering the Ancient of War here. Yeah. I think the Lore may have been a decent option as well. 5/5 is still a pretty good threat. You'll at least trade for the Shattered Sun. You get 2 cards, so it pays for one of the innervates, takes out the Shattered Sun, takes out a weapon charge, does damage. So you're getting even value with that. Now, he didn't draw into Hex, so he's actually fine, but he does have the Sylvanas, so he's going to think he's fine with the Sylvanas, but we know that's not really the case. The Druid does have the Silencing card, the Keeper of the Grove, so we may see a Sylvanas play here because he can't really deal 10 damage.
He could if he puts a Rock Biter on a minion, and then he can hit with everything.
It's really inefficient.
Yeah, you're trading not even 4 for 1, a little bit more, 5, because you count the card.
Right.
And taking damage, so it's really tough. Really hard
Yeah.
to do that.
eKop is actually not in a great spot anymore because he's like, here's Sylvanas, I don't have a Hex, play something else kind of situation. So, yeah, we'll see. But we're absolutely going to see a silence come from the Druid side on Sylvanas, and my guess is that she's going to die.
So then drop the Keeper.
The issue here is if he had the coin, he could Keeper and heal the Giant after killing Sylvanas.
Ah, yeah.
Because he's not going to need to heal against the Shaman. He's going to need to heal a minion with it to have value out of that card. And this is going to be a battle of value essentially. So the fact that he doesn't have the coin is going to cause his Ancient of War to die at the end of this turn, which is a bit unfortunate, but I think he's still in an alright spot, having the card advantage.
Yeah, and he's going to get some trades, which is still really good. So good mid-game start for Monk thus far. But again, I'm still looking down the deck list of eKop, and there's still plenty of threats.
Yeah,
have to deal
the
with.
main one is Ragnaros. You can see in the Druid's hand he has Naturalize. Naturalize is often strictly a card to deal with that exact option. So if we do see Naturalize played, and it's not on Ragnaros, at that point, if the game is not going to end shortly afterwards, you can often expect the game to end in the Shaman's favor.
Yeah, and I mean, Naturalize is also usually a finisher card. You can also remove taunts to kind of get through stuff as well. But we'll see that come into play a little bit later. eKop draws the Novice Engineer for turn 7. See what he can.
It's always a good play.
Yeah. That's kind of what a Shrifeko was telling me. He was saying,
put some junk out there.
Good.
Yeah. It's especially good when you're running the Shadow Sun Clerics. 1/2 is not very threatening at all, but a 2/3 that can kill something. Often stay alive as well.
So we do see the draw for Ragnaros, so he has that lined up for
good.
round 8. Excellent.
He was
job.
probably thinking of doing the lightning stuff. He still might, but knowing that he drew Ragnaros, he's essentially giving up the turn 8 Rag play by doing this move.
Yeah, he's gonna go overloaded for 2, but he can trade everything now while still having a little bit more.
He may consider doing a lightning storm here. I mean, you get 2 creatures. It's not really that bad. Not anymore after toteming, of course, but it looks like he doesn't mind taking the damage. Shouldn't be much of a problem, but we'll see. The Druid does have a lot of surprise finishers with Druid of the Claws being played in charge mode and with the swipes, and with a few other cards that, Claw helps a little bit, stuff like that. Usually it's not played that way, but if your opponent gets low enough, you'll see that sudden change in the tempo of the game.
And then Druid can take backboard control really easily.
Oh, at that point, you just waste everything. Like, he's got 2 Druids of Claws and a swipe right now, so he's got 12 direct. So if his opponent gets greedy enough with the axe, it may actually have great effect.
So from this position with 7 mana, there's a couple of plays you can make. You can play Druid of the Claw. You can play the Ancient of Lore and draw more cards.
He really doesn't need to draw cards. It's going to take many turns for him to play the cards that he currently has in his hand, and he's obviously drawn at least 1 a turn. And it's pretty likely that even draw into stuff like Novice Engineer himself as he's turning up.
So it seems like Druid's just the best play overall, because otherwise there's nothing else really to do. I mean, swiping wouldn't really do anything. They just heal up. And so with that, Monk should eventually come to that conclusion. Now,
Ancient Allure is not a bad play, just because there's no huge threats on the board, and having the Druid of the Claw to charge is pretty good. He's thinking of swipe, and it's not terrible value, but the problem with swipe is you might actually need it for a real creature.
Yeah, setting up.
Apparently, he decides against it. Decides to use it right away.
Okay, and then just gonna pass the turn.
Right. The problem with this play is that the Novice Engineer is gonna get healed to full from the heal totem, and the heal totem as well is gonna heal itself. So he essentially traded the swipe for the.
Oh man.
Yeah, that is a bit unfortunate.
Yeah, perfect mana for the turn, and he's gonna be able to hit Monk very hard.
And we're gonna see the game right here pretty much decide itself. If he decides to go for a naturalized play, he is going to lose directly to Ragnaros.
You're gonna draw 2 cards.
Yeah, and that means that he's gonna use naturalized, which is really bad.
Bad for Monk, you're saying?
Yes, because the opponent has Rag in his hand. He's not going to play it next turn, but he's going to play the turn after. He's going to be overloaded for 3, as you can see. He has 6 mana. But that is still a really, really bad spot for Monk. I don't think most people run more than 1 naturalized, and I think that's the case in this one. So 1 naturalized, no other way to deal with a huge creature, and Ragnaros is the kind of card that if it's on board for more than 1 turn, you're kind of done.
One of the cards that was drawn is an Alakir the Windlord, often joked as, you know, the lose lord, because people say it's just every time you play you're just going to lose, but in some cases eKop's going to be able to use it really well.
He has lethal next turn, and it's going to be one of the most surprise plays that you're going to see. So
it's the Rock Biter.
Right. So he can pump it up to 9, and that effectively gets doubled by the Wind Fury, so he can do 18 direct plus the 2 from the weapon, which I'm sure he's going to attack through next turn.
It's insane finishing potential, and Monk probably has no idea it's coming.
No, there's no way to really tell. But most likely we'll see a taunt creature played, as those are the only plays that are possible from Monk.
But I mean, he might also... Oh yeah, he does have Defender of Argus, but
yeah.
We'll see what Monk chooses to do. One misstep could cost him the game, but he doesn't know that.
I don't think he's going to lose to the Windlord next turn, but I don't believe he's going to win, as even if he kills Ragnaros, it's going to be too costly for him to be able to win the game after that point. I think Ragnaros is really the turning point. But of course, I mean, he might just get greedy and flood the board, though I feel that's very, very unlikely right now. I think we're going to see several taunts come up from this turn.
Depends, you know, he might choose the charge if he feels gung-ho. Oh no, if he chooses the charge. If he chooses the cat form, he gives him the 4/4 with charge on the board, but there's no way to answer the Alakir, and with that, I think eKop already knows.
He can Argus, but we don't know if he will. He does.
Okay. I read the mana counts wrong, you're right. Okay, so with that, he's going to be able to set up some board presence.
Still not great, as Alakir can take those both out. Still not bad, though. I actually don't know the stats on Alakir. It's 3 attack. It's a 3/5?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
I know, because I've tried to make it work so many times that it just wasn't working.
I just saw the card and gave up, you know. But it looks like he can clear the board with it, but it's going to cause his creature to die if it's only 5 toughness. I was a bit hopeful that it's maybe 6, and maybe he can do a pretty cool play with it, but it really proves how crappy that card is right now.
I've tried using it with stuff like Ancestral Spirit, with Flame Tongue. It just wasn't working out no matter how much I tried, but I mean, keeping it as kind of a finisher, similar to Leroy Jenkins, maybe isn't the worst thing.
Probably see a Rock Biter here just to kill off one of the creatures, so Rag is quite likely to stay alive. So right now, we're going to have a very big shift in the game, because if Rag hits the opponent, then it sets up a play to kill with Alakir, and if Rag hits a creature, then it sets up the problem where the opponent probably doesn't have enough damage.
Wow. Bypassing everything and going straight for the face.
Monk is probably quite happy with that result, but he obviously has no knowledge of the Alakir even being used these days. So what's going to happen here is he's going to lose a bunch of creatures. He is not that likely to heal, just because 9 life against that board is not particularly threatening in general. And
really, even if you feel like you're risking the chance of like a Lightning Bolt or something with it?
Yeah, he hasn't seen Lightning Bolt. He hasn't seen Lava Burst. he's played creatures and he's seen his opponent attack into them. So, I mean, it's difficult to see how he sees it.
Yeah, I mean, within dangers, it's all about what he's weighing. But at the same time, if he can put up powerful taunts, he might feel like he doesn't need to. But it all depends actually on what Ragnaros chooses to hit. If Monk.
Oh no, Ragnaros is dead this turn. If Ragnaros doesn't die this turn, he's, the game is over just by itself.
Yeah.
So Ragnaros is going to die one way this turn, is the way you have to look at it.
Okay.
So how is Ragnaros going to die? That's the question right now. Most likely he's going to throw his 2 creatures at it, but he has some very risky options with like claws and healing touches and stuff like that. He also has options because he can put charge on his Druid of the Claw, and he can pump him up a little bit with Defender of Argus. So there's a lot of options, but I think the clear one is just to sack the 2 creatures you have in it.
Yeah, and that way he can have more options. And again, it seasons back the board control with that regards. Thinking about Sylvanas, even though there's really nothing, at least it just puts some kind of pressure on your opponent to be careful with it. But again, I don't think eKop showed a Hex either.
Well, he didn't have a Hex when it was tested for the few creatures back, but that was like 3 turns ago or so.
Yeah.
So it's quite possible that he has a Hex. I don't believe he does, but we're getting into about half the death point right now.
So it's still a very big possibility.
Every turn he's got a decent chance on drawing the Hex.
And so with that, we see eKop finally has his turn again with 1 Argent Squire untouched. And he does have an Earth Elemental and Alakir as the heavy hitters.
He's probably going to save the 1 Rockbiter with the Alakir just to take out the board. Yeah.
All right, well, actually, if he gets a good roll...
This is a little bit sketchy here.
Wow, no, he doesn't get it.
Nope.
Either one, both minions survive. Wow.
That was a very risky play.
Yeah.
And I don't feel he needed to take that risk.
But, maybe he could have also probably fished for a Spell Power Totem, but he wanted probably to drop the Earth Elemental. But now he loses the Argent Squire. And that should give the Druid enough answers.
The main problem is that he loses that crazy surprise burst from Alakir.
Yeah.
And he's going to have to, win more conventionally, which may be a bit more difficult now that, Rag didn't actually cost them that much. We'll see.
Oh, and a big Ragnaros drop for Monk.
This is actually huge, not only because it's Rag, but because he can give Rag taunt.
Yeah, with the Sun Fury Protector.
Right.
Wow.
But there are even other options. He can give taunt to the Squire, so Rag gets protected by it.
And you can't attack him.
Most likely we won't see that. Being at 11 life is not really that comfortable with an Earth Elemental on the ground.
Yeah, and 1/1 taunt Argent Squire with no Divine Shield ain't stopping anything.
Yeah. So he's actually thinking of not
maybe just
giving it taunt.
Ragnaros. But what good did that do? I mean,
well,
protecting
I don't-
Argent Squire.
I don't think there's much harm. It could be just that he doesn't have that many creatures in his deck, and he wants to protect the few that he has. Now it depends what he does here.
Oh man, it doesn't hit the Earth Elemental.
That's not terrible. Oh, that's terrible though.
No, but he doesn't have that much mana to play with. He only has 5, so he can taunt.
Well,
attack
it's getting hexed. I mean, this is the biggest no-brainer ever. But he's not going to be able to go through Ragnaros. So right now he doesn't lose to a lot of cards, but being at 6 life is not really that great of a spot.
Okay, well, Monk.
Oh, and he just won.
Yeah, wow, he just drew the Keeper of the Grove.
Silence
so now he can
into
silence.
charge.
Wow, and that's going to be it. Monk should be able to finish everything off as the final cards are playing in combination. And Monk, he's throwing the well played right before it.
Yep.
Game number 1 goes to Monk from the other team, no name yet.
Very good. I'm very impressed you're nailing that now. That is actually...
I'm trying to abbreviate